I assume the view is no better on the other side there.
It's What's up?
She's doing technology studies. She likes it.
Okay. KGW Breaking News.
And it is big breaking news. Good afternoon, everyone. David Molko and Christine Pitawonich here with you on this Monday. We're 2 weeks after a fire tore through the historic Centennial Mills warehouse and that water tower in Northwest Portland. Part of the century-old structure is set to come down. We are estimating about 30 minutes from right now.
The clock is ticking. Crews have been hard at work, though, for hours preparing the water tower at the very top of the 116-year-old building for demolition. You can see crews there on your screen. The water tower, city officials say, set to be taken down with 4 simultaneous controlled explosions. Now, the goal here is to drop it into the shell of the building. We expect to hear sirens 3 minutes out, then again 1 minute out. There is a 300-foot safety perimeter as well set up, and neighbors are being told to stay indoors with their doors and windows closed.
Okay, this all follows the fire that burned through the long vacant mill like a chimney 2 weeks ago on a Sunday, leaving the outer walls standing and the tank precariously perched on top, as well as a discovery by a canine of what appears to be human remains. There has been no word on the cause, but as we watch this unfold, it is worth noting the likely loss of life so far, potentially in that blaze, along with the fact this building remains a crime scene.
Appreciate you joining us this afternoon. Again, this is a live look at the Centennial Mills building, a historic building that has stood for more than 100 years, 116 years with that water tower perched atop. Again, we are waiting for a news conference to start. We expect to be hearing from Portland Permitting and Development Director Eric Cooch, who will give us a rundown on everything that is happening today and what comes next.
That comes any minute now. You know, we've been watching this unfold over the course of this morning. A crew on a crane putting up explosive charges on the 4 legs of that water tank. We had photos and video from neighbors yesterday showing them marking the spots they wanted to put this on. Then piecemeal, piece by piece, painstakingly, really an hour and a half, 90 minutes per leg, up there on the crane, putting things in, checking the wires, putting what looked like a tarp over it. I saw them splashing water, wetting down the front of the facade this morning. And you know what? People are also gathering in the park, Fields Park, which remains closed, on NATO at a safe distance. But it's a lot of Portland history here, 116 years, and people want to be a part of this too.
Absolutely. And so you've got the people who are watching right from around the neighborhood. But again, back to those neighbors who are expecting this giant potentially implosion. We'll see how it goes. But we had mentioned closing those doors, closing those windows. Additionally, I hope that the people out there have those N95 masks, because previously they have tested the debris and found asbestos. And with this implosion, city officials have said if you're out there, if you have to be out there, wear an N95 mask. Yeah,
and you know what? Not just asbestos, Christine, but also lead that they've found in the remains of the building, I should say, or in what's left of the building, that burned out shell, 7 or 8 stories with that water tank perched up top. Blair Best joining us now to talk a little bit about the history of this place, 116 years, and really how we got to this point. Blair?
That's right. So it's a former flour mill. And like you said, it's 116 years old, over a century old, dates back to Portland's wheat fleet. It transported Oregon grain to ports around the world. And in 1912, notably, the building actually caught fire. A fire started by a short circuit in one of the milling machines. And sprinklers at the time could not contain the flames, and the city's fireboat actually couldn't even shoot water high enough to reach the flames. You can see it's a pretty tall building, I believe 7 or 8 stories high. And that fire, after that fire rather, the iconic water tower that you see there, which is the focus of today's demolition, was installed to help prevent future fires.
And it's hard to make out here, but there's actually a railing, like a walkway that runs around that water tower. We've seen graffiti on and off over the years. The city tried to cover it up and clean it up, but that just gives you a sense with a walkway there, how tall that thing is. I mean, I've estimated, I've not been up there, but you know, some people have 30 feet, 40 feet perched atop the building. So we're not talking about something small. We're talking about 8 stories and maybe 4 stories on top of that, 100 feet, 120 feet.
And that's why they have to take care of that first before like taking care of the entire building. It has to fall, or else, you know, that would be the first thing that.
And you know,
go ahead, Christine. This thing has had quite the history, though. I mean, at one point, so it was obviously a mill for a long time, and then it became headquarters for Portland Mounted Police. It got sold to development folks, and
right, yeah. It operated as a mill, a flour mill, since in the 1990s is when that stopped. Then the city of Portland bought the property in 2000, and as you mentioned, it was used as the police bureau's horseback unit. That's where they staged that. And then about 2 years ago, the city sold the building to a developer for just over $1 million. That developer immediately sold it to Stuart Lindquist, the man who owns the ICE building on the south waterfront.
And what's really interesting is we've seen some of the development plans for what this could look like, and it's maybe mid-rise residential, 5 or 6 stories, and this came out maybe in the last year or two. What's been notable to me looking at those plans and knowing this neighborhood very well is they wanted to take the water tower and put it on the new buildings, right?
It's
as part of it,
iconic.
as part of history.
It's part of Portland's waterfront, and people wanted to save that, and it's kind of sad, honestly, that it's being taken away.
You're not going to see it happen now,
This
right?
whole thing is sad.
Yeah, we'll see what happens though with this whole thing that's happening today. And we've been talking about the history of this building. Of course, the structure here is what city officials have been worried about, the impending potential collapse. Right now we have Dr. Erica Fisher on Zoom with us. She is an associate professor at the Oregon State University's College of Engineering. Erica, appreciate you joining us. You know a lot about structural engineering. Can you tell us, when you look at this historic 116-year-old building, what you see kind of through the eyes of a structural engineer?
Hi, thanks so much for having me. It's really great to be here. So it's unfortunate that we have to demolish our older buildings, but sometimes they get into this state where we're unable to really preserve them, and their structural stability is really untenable at that point. So for this particular building, they're going to have some challenges with the controlled collapse of the building, but it seems like this is something they're trying to look out for all of the things that could potentially go wrong and start any premeditated or impromptu damage to the structure itself.
And Erica, I have a quick question. I mean, initially they had said that they thought potentially the building had some widening cracks, that it was potentially leaning. They want to make sure that they're able to have that water tower collapse into the structure. As a structural engineer, how likely do you think that is to happen?
It is possible. So, as engineers, we can, we've gotten to the point where we can really do quite remarkable things with our calculations, and we know a lot about the way our buildings are constructed. And, for most part, this is an entire field of engineering, is demolition. So, our older buildings as well as our older bridges, this is how we demolish them, is we put ignition locations throughout, and we really do control the demolition of these structures. So it is definitely possible. I don't know enough about the designs of this one to know. Hopefully it goes as planned. We had here at Oregon State University, we had a demolition of a part of our stadium just a few years ago. So we understand how it goes here in Corvallis as well.
Professor, just stand by with us for a second here. I just want to bring our viewers who are joining us right up to speed, saying we are tracking the imminent demolition of the Centennial Mills building, 160 years old, in northwest Portland, there on the waterfront on Nadeau Parkway. Went up like a chimney about 2 weeks ago. Now they're trying to use explosives to take the water tank that's up top, perched precariously up top, to knock that into the structure as safely as possible. We think that's going to happen about 2:30, about 20 minutes or so from right now. We're expecting also a briefing from city officials in advance of that. That's what you're seeing on the right side of the screen as we wait for permitting and development, who've been essentially running the show to bring us up to speed on any potential last-minute changes here.
And it looks like the news conference is just about to get started. Let's listen in again. Eric Cooch with the Portland Permitting and Development Director there.
And I'd like to introduce Eric Cooch, the Portland Permitting and Development Director, who's going to give some remarks about the demolition here at the Centennial Mills site.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Eric Cooch, and I'm the Director of Portland Permitting and Development. Today marks an important step in addressing the dangerous conditions at Centennial Mills. The first phase of demolition is expected to begin around 2:30. The water tower will be taken down first through a controlled demolition using explosives. Once the water tower is safely down, the contractor will assess the remaining structure before moving into the next phase of the demolition. We have worked to notify the surrounding community about today's activities through public alerts and direct outreach. Once the water tower is removed, the contractor will begin dismantling the remaining walls. Their best estimate today is that it could take about 2 weeks to reduce the building to roughly half its current height, but that is an estimate. The condition of the structure and how it responds during demolition will ultimately determine how quickly the work can proceed. We will continue working closely with the property owner, their engineer, and the demolition contractor to ensure that the rest of the demolition is handled safely and expeditiously. This remains a dangerous area. Please stay away from the site for your own safety. Please do not enter the safety perimeter. As we reach this milestone, I want to take a minute to reflect on all the expertise and hard work that got us to this point. This is not a simple demolition. It requires careful coordination among multiple city bureaus, state and county agencies, the railroads, the property owner, and the demolition team, all working together to protect public safety, public health, and the environment. I want to thank all of our partners for their cooperation and hard work in getting us to where we are today. We also appreciate the public's patience and understanding throughout this effort. We will continue to provide updates on the city's website, portland.gov, and we encourage everyone to sign up for public alerts if they have not already done so. Thank you.
Nice beer. Speaking of those public alerts, I was talking to a handful of people. It seems like they were told it would come about an hour before the explosion. They got it 40 minutes. So there was like a 20-minute delay.
Yeah.
Why did that happen? And you said sign up for more public alerts. How are we going to correct that for the future?
Yeah, this situation, we did our best, right? This situation remained very fluid. We were given multiple different times today because, the reality is it was subject to what happened in the field, right? So ultimately, we did our best with communications, and we'll try to do a better job in the future.
How many blasts will there be, and about how much time between each one?
Yeah, so there's going to be a total of 4, and they're placed towards the base at each leg. You can see where they're currently wrapped on the leg of the water tower right there. And I'm told that the legs that are closest to the river will detonate first, and then subsequently the other legs will detonate. But we're talking about fractions of a second difference.
Do you guys have a plan in place if the building comes down today?
We are prepared for anything, right? So that's something that we did plan for in case it does happen, and it's certainly a possibility.
What is the Oregon DEQ doing to monitor the air around the building?
I don't want to speak on behalf of DEQ, but I do know that the demolition contractor is working closely with DEQ to ensure that the building comes down in a safe manner.
What's the worst case scenario that you game planned?
Oh, I don't want to get into all the different scenarios, but we did game plan for a number of different ways that this could go wrong, but hopefully it doesn't. I'm confident that this building's going to come down safely, and we can all move on.
Okay, and about how much time again between each of the blasts, do you know?
Seconds.
Just seconds,
Yeah.
okay.
This idea for it to come directly down.
Correct.
How does that work with
Yeah, it's an excellent question. So the goal is to have the water tower fall within the footprint of the structure. Regarding your question about the human remains, I don't want to speak on behalf of Portland Fire and Rescue. However, we have been working closely with them in the way that we demo the structure. And the reality is that they can't enter the structure while it's so unsafe. We have to get the site safe so they can enter the site and search for those human remains if there are any.
So the idea is the water tower won't hit any of the walls, it'll just come straight down.
That's the goal.
Right.
Correct.
Why is the lock zone 300 feet? Are people standing right here when this comes down? Would they be safe if debris goes flying?
Yeah, I believe we're at 400 feet right now, and I was told by the engineer and the demolition contractor that 300 feet perimeter is good. So, I'm relying on their expertise for that safety perimeter.
Is today just focusing on the water tower, or can we expect to see other parts of the building come down today as well?
Correct, yeah. So today's primarily focusing on the water tower and monitoring how the building behaves post-detonation, right? We're going to learn a lot on what happens after those explosives detonate and how the building reacts to that.
How many people in the neighborhood are concerned about what's going to be left afterwards, the dust, the asbestos, especially in the park? They've got pets.
Sure.
What is the city doing to make sure that we're mitigating that, cleaning that up, and making sure it's safe for people and their pets to walk in this neighborhood?
Right, we're working closely with the contractor that the building owner hired, as well as that contractor is working with DEQ to make sure that it's cleaned up in a way that's not harmful to the environment, that's not harmful to people, and we're going to make sure that it's cleaned up safely.
All right, we just have time for a few more questions.
How many stories in the building, and does it have a basement like so many buildings of this era did?
You know what? I'm not sure off the top of my head. I'll have to get back to you with an answer to that question.
Will you be available afterwards to comment on this?
Actually, I wasn't planning on it.
We can follow up offline, make sure you get an answer.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, how you thought it went and all that stuff.
Has the city had to front any costs related to this, or has it all been on the owner?
It's all been on the owner.
Do we know how much that's been an estimate?
They didn't share that information with us.
Does that include like overtime and labor that's going towards all this, like this press conference?
No, indirect costs. Yeah, that does not include indirect costs.
All right, one final question, then we're going to let Eric go.
The trains, have you been in communication with the train companies to ensure that they're not going through during and after that demolition?
Yes. Yeah, we asked Union Pacific not to run any trains through the site while we're working, right, to make sure the site's safe for the folks, working to bring down the water tower.
Were they responsive to that?
Yes, yeah.
All right.
So
thanks a lot, Eric.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank you.
you.
Thank you. Sorry you had to stand in the street.
All right, you've been listening to a live news conference there from Eric Cooch, the city's director of permitting and development, about the imminent explosion, or imminent, I should rather say, detonation of the water tower up top the Centennial Mills building in Northwest Portland. Notable to me, Christine, we've watched crews placing those explosive charges, 4 of them over the course of the day, saying they're 2 closest to the river. They're going to go off first, fractions of seconds, then the 2 in the front closest to NATO will go in. The goal for the water tower to drop straight into what remains of that structure.
There is still a lot of coverage to be had. We are taking a very short break to bring in our television viewers. We will be right back with you momentarily.
Okay, we're in a break. We're still holding on the tower shot. Is that?
KGW Breaking News.
Good afternoon, everyone. David Mulco with Christine Pitawanich here with you on this Monday. Breaking news now with the historic Centennial Mills warehouse, a demolition now imminent.
Absolutely, and it was just 2 weeks ago that a fire ripped through the historic Centennial Mills warehouse and water tower located in Northwest Portland. That's part of a century-old structure set to come down again. We're estimating at about 2:30. We just heard from Eric Cooch, Portland's permitting and development director. He really outlined the plan for today. Explosions set to bring down the water tower, hopefully, they say, into the footprint of the building. Then they plan to dismantle the building.
You're looking at video of crews up there above NATO Parkway today, putting explosive charges on the 4 legs of that water tower. They were marked yesterday. Those charges were put in today. It was a painstaking process that took well over 6 hours across the course of the morning. The city just saying in the last few minutes, the detonation is going to be almost simultaneous. So what we will see is the 2 closest to the river possibly go, and then the 2 closest to NATO Parkway, but nearly simultaneous. As you said, Christine, they want that water tower perched atop the century-old building to drop straight down. We got to bring up the question of safety in the neighborhood, right? You're looking at a video from about 2 weeks ago. The security perimeter around this, demolition experts and the contractor have told the city about 300 feet. They say their perimeter is 400. I just want to point out there are residential condo buildings within about 500 feet of that structure.
And speaking of safety, we're talking about a pretty large area here. They did send out text message warnings. They said they would have sirens sounding 3 minutes before the blast, then again 1 minute before the blast, and also an audible 5-second countdown before the 4 explosions go off within seconds of one another to bring down that water tower.
We should also note here the very real reality here that this building remains a crime scene. Right, there's no official word on the cause of that fire 2 weeks ago on Sunday, but canines have identified the possibility of human remains inside the building. Portland Fire saying it's an active crime scene as well. So there's a bit of give and take, and in some ways it's also an emotional day for residents, not just because of that, but because this is 116 years in the making, and at the end of today, if all goes well, that water tower will be no more.
It is a historic building. It could take at least 2 weeks after everything comes down for things to sort of become a little bit more normal. But again, a historic 116-year-old building that at one point functioned as a mill, then became the headquarters for Portland Mounted Police, had developers take it over, then was sold to a man who also owns the South Waterfront ICE building. But today, yes, a lot of eyes on this building and waiting for it to come down. We're about 10 minutes out at this point, and a lot of people out there trying to get a look at how this all happens.
I just got this message from a building manager, a condo building in one of those buildings, saying, I got a phone call from the Portland Fire Marshal. He asked me to let everyone know they don't want them out on their balconies and to stay away from the glass. They want to take extra precautions during the takedown process. So of course, if you're in the area, best to put some distance between you and that building. Not out on your balconies, not looking out your glass windows. Better to be safe than sorry.
And if you have to be out, those N95 masks are being recommended by city officials. Okay, speaking of people who have to be out, reporting the news, our Tim Gordon is live near the building, I believe about 400 maybe feet away, which is kind of the
security perimeter right now.
Exactly, that is the city staged perimeter. Tim, if you can hear us, what are you seeing from your vantage point? What are people saying around you?
Right. Hey guys. Well, listen, if you're looking at the picture right now that's from our camera, we're at 11th and Northwest Quimby here. It's a west, maybe a little bit northwest side of the perimeter here, and you can see the fence is just in front of us. A lot of people here. There's residents. There's other folks that have come down just to see this spectacle happen, this bit of history happen, a bit of history coming down in reality. So, I think the good news of where we're standing, guys, is that northwest wind is blowing at our backs, and we expect that when this happens, there'll be a fair amount of dust and material up in the air, and that should be taken out away from us and towards the river. So that's probably a good direction for this wind to be blowing for this to go down. But yeah, there are, literally 100 people just around me right here, and this area is a really good vantage point to see this happen. Very shortly now. A lot of people have been very patient, have been out here all day long. The photographer I'm with, Eric Patterson, has been here since, 5 in the morning, Eric, or something like that. So he's really had a long haul. But yeah, it's definitely a piece of history. It is definitely something that people are interested in seeing happen. And yes, we're being kept back at a safe distance, and that's obviously smart. Really interesting to hear about detonate just slightly before all four. Two of them will go off first, the ones that are closest to the river, to allow that tank, hopefully that water tank, to fall right into the center of the building and not out. And I think everybody's waiting also to see what else might or might not come down with a water tower. I know the idea is that it'll just be that much today and then they'll go from there. But that is a question that will be answered very soon, guys. We'll send it back to you.
Tim Gordon there near Fields Park, which we should mention is closed as well. That building, as you're looking at Centennial Mills, it's a burned out shell, Christine. I mean, all the floors in between, they collapsed in that fire 2 weeks ago, give or take. So when that tower comes down, some of those walls could come down too.
Right. And, if they don't come down, we have heard that it'll take some time for the building to become half of its height. I mean, we're talking up to 2 weeks to get that building down half of its current height. That is if the building doesn't come down when the water tower comes down as well. And David gave a pretty clear picture of what that building is like. I mean, especially the exterior structure. Think of a chimney is how we've been told to look at it. The entire inside burned out after that August 2nd fire that just burned 7 floors plus the roof of that building. And now you've just got a structure that's precariously standing.
If you're just joining us, we're waiting for the next step, which would be sirens sounding on the streets. They're about 3 minutes out from the detonation. Sirens again about 1 minute out. While we wait for that, maybe 6 to 10 minutes away, I want to bring in Devin Haskins, who's also in Northwest Portland. Devin, I saw it this morning, people on their balconies, there are watch parties going on. I'm getting texts about this. What's the mood like? Is it festive? Is it curious? Is it all of the above?
Curiosity is the biggest thing. We've had people asking us questions all about how they're going to do this. What time is it going to happen? What do we know? what are they telling you, and just moments ago finally getting the full definition of what's going to happen. There's a crowd gathering here. I'm at 11th and Petty Grove right now. I'm going to step out of the way. You can see across the street, you see quite a few cameras as well, people bringing out their own cameras, people setting up their video cameras and everything just to get that shot of it. If we pan the camera to the right, just down 11th, there's a large group of people, again, just kind of lining the fence of Fields Park. So a lot of people out here coming out, people bringing their camp chairs, sitting down, standing up, just finding that place to watch this come down here within the next maybe 10 minutes or so, or 5-10 minutes. Not exactly sure the exact time. We're just, again, being told right around 2:30. So again, it's that waiting and seeing and everybody wanting to be a part of this moment of being able to watch that water tower come down and see obviously what happens after that explosion or implosion of those the legs happen. What else may come down or not come down. But yeah, a lot of people out here, at least at this corner, and then all the way around the fence at Fields Park. Back to you guys.
All right, 116 years this moment in the meeting, waiting for those sirens about 3 minutes out there. One of the things we saw there in Devin's live picture is people putting on masks, right, N95 masks, because they have already confirmed that they've found asbestos and lead in the aftermath of that fire. Some people were finding bits of asbestos condo buildings on their balconies, right, a full block or two away. So obviously there's health concerns with this at the same time.
Well, I think it's also concerning because, we saw some people out there with those N95 masks. We also saw the other masks that don't really keep the
particles out. You just don't know how far that dust is going to go, right?
And a bunch of other people who don't have masks at all. So really hoping that people have them maybe in their pockets and put them on beforehand. Another thing I think is if you're in the area, or even if you think that you're far enough away, you've got that dust potentially in your hair, potentially on your clothing. So another thing that city officials have said to be aware of is not tracking that dust into your home, without, thinking about it or without your knowledge. But Blair, I know you've been covering this particular building for quite a while. It is a building that has a lot of history to it, and neighbors apparently have said they're not really surprised.
Right, I think today, it's pretty telling that it's such a spectacle and so many people are gathering, but it's kind of sad, honestly, right? Like, this is what happens to buildings in Portland that are neglected for decades. They are overrun with homeless camps. There's been reports, city records date back to 2017 of homeless activity in this building. As you can see there, it's charred, but we can see tons of graffiti on the outside. Neighbors tell me they've even seen people trespassing inside the building, camping, squatting, people actually climbing on top of that water tower.
It's been covered with graffiti on and off for years, right?
Yes, no, it totally. And neighbors have raised concerns, right? Officials knew that this building was a problem. Just a few months ago, Portland police actually filmed themselves as they cleared the building of squatters and arrested one person for trespassing. So many neighbors I've talked with, as we've been covering this in the past 2 weeks since the fire, are not surprised that this building caught fire. And they're kind of frustrated that their concerns and all of their calls to police and fire, the head of the Pearl District Neighborhood Association told me that at one point, police and fire were responding to that building on a weekly basis.
Okay, I understand we're hearing sirens right now. Let's listen into that. All right, if that is the siren, and it sounds like it is, that would be the 3-minute siren. So we're expecting another set of sirens in about 2 minutes. That'd be 2:30. And the detonation's about 2:31 up top. One of the things we haven't talked about as we wade through the next couple minutes here is the disruption to people in the neighborhood, the disruption to the rail lines. Amtrak lines through Seattle, to Seattle more or less from Portland, have been disrupted for the last couple weeks.
Cars parked in the closed off area. They haven't been able to get their cars. I can't even imagine.
Yeah, and in addition, you've got the Fields Park, which is nearby. A lot of people use that for walking their pets. Amtrak stopping service, especially from Portland on the north side, so the Seattle to Portland route suspended. But there's been a little bit of controversy too surrounding this. Because
the freight lines.
Exactly, Union Pacific. City officials say Union Pacific actually resumed running 13 freight cars with toxic chemicals, actually specifically chlorine, near the building, despite saying that it wouldn't. Again, we're hearing sirens, so we are getting very close. thinking that this might be the 1 minute siren potentially?
It's hard to tell. I think they were rather close together, but maybe they're just trying to give folks an ample warning. As you heard from the permitting and development director there from the city, these things can change minute to minute. So I think as long as they give enough warning, our goal here is when this actually happens to just let it unfold, let you soak it in, and then we'll kind of fill in the blanks with our experts and our panel and our reporters on what you've actually seen as this happens. But this is the Centennial Mills building in Northwest Portland. Explosive charges have been loaded on all four corners. The goal here, the city says, for those to go off near simultaneously and for that tower to drop in. I'm going to stop and listen in. I'm hearing something there. A shout of fire in the hole and a round of applause from the crowd there on the edge of Fields Park as those explosives detonate. And that water tower, I am no demolition expert, but they said they wanted it to drop straight into the shell of the building, and it looks like that's exactly what happened.
They did. Yeah, we heard it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire in the hole. And the explosion, and it is somewhat surprising. I mean, I am no structural engineer either, but you can see the sides of that building still standing. I mean, I think this was something that we were going to talk about, like look for after the explosion to see how much of that building actually came down, and it appears not much of it did.
It's honestly wild that it didn't, because they were afraid that the trains across the street were going to, the rumbling from the trains, the vibrations were going to cause the building to go down.
We'll check in with our reporters, but I'm just getting texts from people on the ground there saying, I went over to close the door, it went off and blasted. I could feel the blast and I went to my feet. Those are people in neighboring buildings. Loud and powerful, really, really powerful.
Wow. And now as we look forward, again, this could take about 2 weeks to get the building to half its current height. And I mean, this area is going to be closed for at least 2 weeks, likely longer, as crews get ready to take down the rest of this building.
I want to see if we have Tim Gordon or Devin Haskins, either reporter, available on the ground, because I want you to give us a sense of how those moments felt, listening to those sirens, waiting for the blast, watching it unfold, and what you actually felt being that close to the building. Tim or Devin, are you there?
Oh my God, yeah, here we are. Oh man, you guys, that was, I will say that was intense. It was more of everything than anybody expected. It was so fast, it was so loud, it was so big. And if it wasn't simultaneous, they did it just right, because it mostly fell in, but it was something I think it caught a lot of people off guard, just how loud it was, right? It was just a huge boom. And some debris went flying, as you saw, but the main tower in pieces went right in where it was supposed to go. Yeah, it was a lot. It was dynamic. I think there was big cheers, but there was also, I don't know, kind of, for me anyway, I was just kind of astounded. I didn't expect it to be quite that intense, that much, that big. It went down, yeah.
Tim, I got to ask you, one of the things I saw coming off the front of the building are some pieces of debris, some larger chunks and maybe some dust. Any sense if that's settling? Are you getting any sense of heat, any particles headed your way, or do you feel like you're at we're talking a 400-foot security perimeter that they'd set up. Any sense of There, disruption to trains, disruption to residents, and so on and so forth. If you're watching us now on KGW on broadcast, we're going to return you to our regularly scheduled programming now, as this looks like a best case scenario of the water tower atop Centennial Mills in Northwest Portland falling straight down into the burned out shell of that building. If you'd like to continue with us, you can hop on to KGW Plus or KGW.com. We're going to continue our live coverage there until 3. Let's pause for a moment and let those viewers return to their programming.
Okay, we are back with you here on streaming. If you missed the big show, gosh, that happened right at about 2:30, where we saw the explosion that brought down the water tower that was perched precariously on top of the Centennial Mills building. The plan was to have that go directly into the footprint of the building, and that is exactly what happened.
I'm looking forward. We're working on getting that video back so you can see it again in real time. Christine, David Molko here, and Blair Best here have been talking about how this appears to be, and we have not heard the city come out and say this, basically a best case scenario of what they plan to do, right? Giving residents a heads up. It came 40 minutes ahead, sounding sirens maybe 3 minutes and 1 minute out, shouting fire in the hole, and then that water tower collapsing straight down. This all happened, of course, because of that fire, that devastating fire in the building about 2 weeks ago. Fire canine locating human remains in that burned out shell. And as you said, the goal now is to piece by piece slowly bring that down and keep the neighborhood and the people there as safe as possible.
Again, it'll take at least 2 weeks for that building to get to half of its current height, and at the very least, at least 2 weeks, probably even longer, for that area to be shut down as crews continue to do their work, though. But as you talked about, the structure itself like a chimney, because that fire back on August 2nd really just tore through all of the floors of that building, all the timber, 7 floors worth. Just gone, up in smoke, up in flames, as well as the top of that building, the roof. And at this point, a lot of people outside of that 300-foot perimeter to keep people safe. There's a media staging area at about 400 feet out of the perimeter, and
residential buildings about 500 feet out. But you know, I've been texting with people who are in some of those buildings, and I'm getting thumbs up. It was crazy. You could feel the air push and the rush. I'm glad I wasn't closer. Somebody else said, I'm here watching. I screamed, LOL. Someone on the 16th floor giving me a thumbs up. You know it's a good sign when people are giving you thumbs up. They're talking about what they felt, and people on the streets who are watching what's left of this are packing up and going out, right?
That's
Nothing
true.
to see here, right?
Yeah, so people on the streets, you could hear them whooping and hollering, and our reporters are on the ground too. We spoke with Tim Gordon, who heard and felt the blast. Same with our Devin Haskins, and we have yet to check in with our Harley Coldiron, who is also live. Harley, you just recently spoke with Rick Graves from Portland Fire and Rescue.
Yeah, it was a very quick chat. He had to get going, but basically in 2 words, he said mission successful. This went exactly how they planned, exactly how they wanted it to go. And there were tons of people, tons of staff. And if you see the man in the yellow jacket, the tall white guy right there on your right, he was the one saying fire in the hole, the one saying out loud, giving the warnings to for the sirens to go off. So he was in charge, and they were literally all clapping, happy, successful, as well as people were here. And I have to say, I literally shook in my shoes. It was way louder, way more intense than I thought. And the wind was blowing south, so we did get some debris kind of move our way, but really just little chunks. There's some little pieces that were on my shirt, but you can't really see them. Just a very successful operation. People were very excited. Some people were also very sad. I mean, this has been up for 116 years. A lot of people say it's an icon, historical. They wanted to see it stay up, but a lot of neighbors wanted to go because all those problems Blair was talking about earlier with the homeless camps and squatters and lots of safety complaints. So now really moves to what's going to go in this building. How quickly can they get it down? Like you guys said, the goal is to have it in half in about 2 weeks. And if that is the case, they're going to be able to open up this road and hopefully parts of Fields Park. So a lot of moving pieces here, but definitely mission successful.
Yeah, a bit of a bittersweet situation, but thank you for your report, Harley.
Just another text from a resident in the area calling it funny but not funny. It scared the blank 4-letter word out of me, quite frankly. I thought I'd have more time to go close the door, but you heard it there.
Yeah.
Successful from Portland Fire. Successful, best case scenario from everybody. I think we have the video from about 10 minutes ago. We're going to pause here and let you watch that moment unfold.
Just disappeared.
Okay, our apologies for the, little bit of a curse word
Profanity,
there. In
yeah.
the video, we'll work on that, so we do apologize for that. But
well,
it's testament to the moment, right?
Truly, I mean, even just watching it a second, even third time, I mean, it really gets you. It's such a blast, and it happens so fast. What you don't see here, what you don't hear, are the sirens. The 3-minute warning siren, the 1-minute warning siren, the man counting down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire in the hole. I mean, this whole time leading up to that blast just kind of kept us all on the edge of our seats.
It certainly did. And just looking at what remains, which is no water tower atop the 116-year-old building, but the shell with no floors in there, and now the painstaking process of beginning to take those pieces down one by one. Let's talk about those health concerns again, because you make an important point, Christine. There was a 400-foot safety perimeter around that, but in addition to that, they asked people to stay indoors as much as possible, wear N95s after if they had to go out, because of the concern. They had already confirmed asbestos was in the building, lead was in the building. We saw it flying and being tested on people's balconies after that fire 2 weeks ago. So the question is, how much debris is out there? How much dust is out there? Just at this stage, because we don't have the answers to those questions, we see officials walking around like this is a normal day. Best to take precautions right now.
Absolutely. So, I mean, they even said just make sure that the dust that might be on your clothing, that you don't track that into your home. They're hoping that people closed their windows, closed their doors. Earlier, if you weren't with us, we spoke or we heard from Eric Cooch, Portland's permitting and development director. He had said that the city is working with the property owner who had hired on a contractor, and they are apparently working with DEQ to hopefully make sure everything is cleaned up, especially because Fields Park there in that area right across the street is so heavily used by people walking, working out, walking their dogs. So the concern obviously was that asbestos, the lead that was found.
I want to bring Blair in with us here. Blair, as we've been talking about this over the course of the past hour, you've in some ways called this a sad day. And it is, not only because of the potential loss of life that we had in the fire with canines discovering what they think could be human remains that has not been confirmed, but the fact that there's so much history there, and not only on how long this building was allowed to stand abandoned and what happened there, but that it is a symbol of the Pearl District. You go through and you look at the street signs, and what's on top in black on top of the street signs? The water tower atop the mill,
Yeah, it is kind of a sad day to think that we're losing that piece of history, that iconic picture that we see on the Portland waterfront. I mean, this is a former flour mill, as we've been saying. It's been around for 116 years, and it dates back to Portland's wheat fleet. That's when Oregon transported grain to ports all around the world. And in 1912, actually, the building did catch fire due to some mechanical issues, and that's after that fire was when the water tower was erected to try and prevent, or rather help
put out fires in the future.
Yeah.
We saw another fire this year. We saw obviously the fire 2 weeks ago. So,
and there have been like mini fires reported throughout recent years, just from like squatters and homeless camps that have set up shop in there. A lot of people who I've talked with who have camped inside the building actually say they would go in the building to collect firewood. So that's not a great sign. But I think it's just very telling of when these old historic buildings are not preserved and they sit empty and abandoned for years. I mean, unfortunately, this is what happens. We're sitting on a Monday afternoon in August watching it get blown up, and there's people cheering. And so yes, it's wild and it's a spectacle, but it's also very telling to how we got here and what building is next, right?
mean,
there are many vacant buildings.
To your point, it did not have to be this way.
No,
is what
it didn't.
You're saying.
And many neighbors say it could have been prevented.
I want
numerous times.
Go ahead, Christine.
I was going to say, Blair, love the historical piece of it. We want to go back out to Harley Coldiron, who has Rick Graves with him from Portland Fire and Rescue. Harley.
Yeah, I just talked with Rick, but we want to get this live interview. Rick, could have gone any better.
I'm certainly not an explosive engineer, and I was fortunate enough to be able to interact with them all morning. What an amazing group of individuals. They were so concerned about the safety of not only their workforce, but all the community around. They were concerned with the glass windows throughout all the structures. There was a high focus on the safety. It was just an amazing thing to experience. Normally, in my gig, I show up and things have already started, things have happened. I show up to an emergency. This was a planned emergency, and to watch the steps throughout the last 2 weeks that have gone on with the city and all the meetings and the owner and the demolition companies that were involved, and to experience the end result was incredible. And I have the utmost respect for the companies that came in here and did all the work to have that work so successfully. Incredible.
And it seems like it went directly down like planned. It doesn't seem to hit any of the walls or anything?
No, it dropped straight down based on the videos I've seen since the incident. Unbelievable. Incredible how they planned it and how it worked just as they had intended.
I'll let you go on this. What is the next steps for your crew, the fire department? How are you guys involved from here on out?
We still maintain custody of the building because it's an open and active investigation. As you know, the human remains dogs did have a high likelihood of detection of human remains within the structure. So as the walls get dropped down to when it's safe to enter, then we'll be able to enter and begin to do a forensic evaluation of that particular site. Our lead investigator is embedded in the demolition team and plans, so we can try and control as best possible, leaving the area where there's a potential of human remains as clean as possible to allow our investigation more success. But that's our involvement. We're custodians, and we move forward hand in hand with PP&D and the demolition team to safely bring this building down to the ground, to allow NATO to open up, to allow train travel to occur. We're just moving forward safely and as smoothly as we can.
Rick Graves, thank you very much.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
My pleasure.
Well, you heard from the PIO of the fire department. All successful and all good. Christina, David, we're going to send it back to you.
Okay, good news. Thank you for your reporting, Harley.
All right, I want to bring in Erica Fisher, a structural engineer and associate professor at Oregon State. Thanks for standing by with us over the last half hour or so. Professor, you watched this unfold with the rest of us. Those charges go off, that water tank drop in. What's your assessment of how this demolition went?
It couldn't have gone more successful. That's a really, really successful demolition. After a fire, the material that was directly heated is typically weakened. So we don't really know what the structural capacity of that material is. We can guess. But when you add the historical context of this building on top of it, there's a lot of unknowns. So it's really hard to predict, as you heard beforehand by Eric, the building department's official. It's really hard to predict if only the water tower will fall down, or you're going to see some more impact on the walls of that building. And so it really couldn't have gone better that just the water tower came down inside the building.
And just briefly before we let you go here, and really appreciate your time today, is this the complicated part? Is that over? Is the explosives and blowing something up always, or is it still sort of touch and go, given the fact you have 8 stories of concrete and masonry that is sort of sitting there with nothing on the inside? What's your assessment kind of the next steps here?
Well, next steps, it's still quite an unstable structure. There are no floors that are bracing those walls that are, again, weakened because of the fire that occurred within the building. So that is still a concern, and they are looking at taking the top of the building off, or the first few floors. And so those next steps will still be a challenge to ensure that what actually collapses is what's intended to collapse. And you really don't see anything more, so that the police can do the investigation, as they mentioned, that they have to do.
All right, Associated Professor Erica Fisher at Oregon State. Appreciate your all things expertise when it comes to structural engineering. Thanks for being here with us. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thanks for having me.
We'd like to go out to our Devin Haskins now. Devin, we saw some of the debris kind of flying off the building at the moment there was that explosion. I'm hearing that you spoke with a woman who might have been grazed by some debris.
Yeah, she was sitting here on this bench behind me. We're just to the west of Fields Park and looking at the building there. A couple hundred feet, more than the 300 feet zone, hitting this bench, and you can zoom in right there. You can see that the piece of the concrete structure, whatever was attached to that, went right through the bench here, creating a hole in it. She was sitting, right here, and it came, she said, right along the side of her clothing that she was wearing. She said she had no scratches, no bruises or anything like that, no cuts. She's fine, just a little shaken up. She was surprised that it came this far, surprised that she got hit. We were also told by one of our other colleagues that a business just down the street from us was also hit and had some damage to it as well. So some of that debris making it farther than that 300 zone that they were putting people out of. You know, that blast was huge. It caught people off guard. There were people I was watching that were, you know, taking a camera shot of it, and it went off, and it was immediate, like, just reaction and shaking because of how loud that explosion was. And with how big that explosion was, again, sending that debris all the way over here and making a hole in between the two slats of that bench. But yeah, she said she's okay. She took off right after us, and she said she was going to keep that little chunk that fell. I told her that it probably had asbestos on it, and to treat everything like that it had asbestos. But she was going to more or less put it down after she got home. But still surprised that it came this far and grazed the side of her clothing. Back to you guys.
You know, Devin, before we let you go here, I'm just curious to know, obviously, is this mood of curiosity. We're all sitting here watching this unfold, the preparations over the course of this morning, painstaking over the course of a number of hours. Is there any sense, and it's sort of like, it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, she was grazed, but she was still hit. There's still damage, but not a lot of damage.
That's what we're talking
is
about,
there, is there any sense, though, from folks you've talked to on the ground that maybe this perimeter should have been wider, that they should have been a little bit further back? Is that part of the conversation at all?
I haven't heard that from anybody just yet. I mean, it was pretty much right after that explosion happened that it kind of cleared out. They came, they saw it, everybody was in awe. They had that couple minutes of like, holy cow, that was loud, and you know, it traveled. But then after that, everybody kind of picked up their cameras, their chairs, or whatever they brought, and walked off. There's only maybe a dozen or so people standing around in my near vicinity right now, just kind of staring at it from the maybe 100 or so that were here earlier when the implosion actually happened.
Okay, Devin Haskins reporting. I'm sure we'll hear more stories. Thank you so much.
It's interesting because the video is just starting to come in from people who are at all different angles in
Right.
the park above on the 16th floor in this condo building. So over the course of the evening news at 4, 5, and 6, we hope you're going to join us then, because we're going to get all of these different perspectives,
all of it.
the stories, the reactions in real time, all of those moments. I think we have that video again of the tower coming down, the water tower coming down about 25 minutes ago. Let's take a look. It doesn't get old.
No, it doesn't. And again, if you weren't watching it live, I mean, people are, you can hear it now, like hollering in the background. Our reporters, all of them, said it was stronger and louder than they were anticipating. I mean, this thing came down as the city of Portland expected it, was hoping it would come down. That water tower falling directly into the footprint of this historic Centennial Mills building.
Just reading the text from neighbors again. Funny but not funny. It scared the blank out of me, quite frankly. I thought I'd have more time to close the door. You could feel the air push and rush against me. I'm glad we weren't any closer. Blair, I got to ask you, let's just move forward, because this has had such an impact on the neighborhood. We're talking about the building coming down, but you got the rail line, you've got NATO Parkway, which is a thoroughfare closed. So it's like, it sounds like it's still going to be a while before things get back to normal.
Right, I don't think things have been normal around that building for quite some time, given just the reports that neighbors have made of like crime and graffiti and homeless camping and all of the things that come with that. So this building has not only been an eyesore, it has been a major problem spot, and it still is, right? Like, we've just lost the water tower, and now it's going to take weeks to get it to half the size, and then we have the rail car that, you know, is defying city orders and continuing to drive through.
This is Union Pacific
story.
saying we're running toxic. The city, let me just mince this for us. So it's like the Union Pacific, which is the freight line there, agreeing with the city, hey, we're going to start running trains through. The city wasn't thrilled, but said, okay, but you're agreeing not to run toxic chemicals or poisonous chemicals through. And then the city finds out through some sort of freight tracking app or platform that, oh my gosh, there were some cars that went through that had some chlorine inside of them, and the railroad didn't really deny it. They just said, hey, we've put in these precautions. We have people there. We're going slow. And And we think that's stopped. At least the freight trains have stopped for the time being,
that was
right?
all leading up to today, so
Right.
we'll have to see like what precautions the neighborhood needs to take moving forward, and the future of the site too.
Yeah.
Huge question mark. It's
Big
been
question.
a question mark for decades.
And a beautiful patch of Portland waterfront with a lot of history.
There's a
you know?
lot that you could do with it, and I know there are plans out there to create like a park, to create residential units.
Well, initially, you had spoke to a man who wanted to turn it into a nightclub.
Yeah, he wanted to turn it into a primo nightclub. That's his words, not mine.
Okay.
But the city's permitting process he called nightmarish, and it wasn't necessarily that building that we're focusing on today that he was wanting to lease. It was just part of the property. But he says the permitting process, the city restrictions, and to the city's point, I mean, it's a historic property. So it's going to take a lot to repurpose a building like that. There's seismic, there's flood, there's environmental protections that need to be done, and that just, it kind of scared him away. It costs a lot of money, and now he's going outside of Multnomah County. But we have heard these stories many times that repurposing buildings in Portland specifically are a challenge.
It's just remarkable. I just have to say this because we're looking at that building, the 116-year-old building that most of us, all of us have only ever known with that water tank sitting on top, right? Iconic symbol of the Pearl District. And that is now gone, right?
I don't know if people like that iconic symbol of the Pearl District, because that's what it's looked like for decades.
Down. It'll be coming down.
I mean, the water tower is one thing, but it's been an eyesore. Like, let's be real. I think people are celebrating because it's going to be gone.
Yeah, and by the way, if you're wondering who's footing the bill on all of this, it is not going to be taxpayers. That's according to the city of Portland, because the city issued an order to the property owner saying that he will pay for the work. He has hired a contractor, that contractor working with DEQ to hopefully clean up the space because, as we've talked about, asbestos, lead found in that debris. So hopefully everything will settle.
Just as we recap here, you know, officials say this has gone as well as practically possible, right? They had a security perimeter. They took their time. The charges went off. The water tank dropped in. Nothing else crumbled. We saw bits of debris flying. A woman said she got grazed. We saw some damage to a bench. We don't know how much asbestos or lead is in the air. We hope not much. N95 masks, a good idea in the vicinity. But it's the future, right? And the fact that this could be still weeks, if not months, for things to get cleaned up, for the road to reopen. It's unclear.
The saga continues.
Exactly. And, you know, we have been live here on streaming on the air since about 2 o'clock, since we've been streaming. And we have been counting down to this moment. So we will show you the moment one more time. We hope you'll join us for our newscast at 4, 5, and 6. But for now, take a look.
Oh no, it literally blew up and fell right down in the